Welcome back to the L&D Explorers Podcast from GoSkills. On this episode, we speak with Connie Malamed, the founder and chief mentor at Mastering Instructional Design, and she joins us to talk about visual design for learning. We'll talk about the importance of visual design in all its different forms, how to choose the right visuals and improve our own design skills, and why feedback can hold the secret to whether your visuals work or not. I'm Dan Gorgone, course producer at GoSkills, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the L&D Explorers Podcast, and my name is Dan Gorgone. I'm the course producer at GoSkills, and we're very happy to be joined by Connie Malamed, who is the founder and chief mentor at Mastering Instructional Design. She is an international keynote speaker and author. So Connie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Dan. Glad to be here.
Yeah, our topic today is mastering visual design for learning. And I know that there's a lot of L&D professionals out there who hear visual design, and maybe their brains start to melt because I know that it's very, very easy for us, and I'm included in this, to think if we just have a mountain of text of information, of knowledge that we can share with our learners, if they can just absorb that and be able to, access it whenever it's needed, then that would be wonderful. But I think as a lot of us know in the field, being able to offer a variety when it comes to the knowledge and the information that we're trying to share, text and visuals, it's a much better way for people to absorb it and understand it. So seeing how you're our expert here, could you start our discussion by kind of explaining the importance of visual design when it comes to today's digital learning environments?
Sure. Well, first of all, so many of our products are visual. E-learning is very visual. Manuals, participation manuals, job aids are often visual, along with text. Then we've got video. So it's for people who are sighted, visuals are our strongest sense. There are more brain resources devoted to visuals than to any other sense for sighted individuals. But the other thing is that visuals are motivating. They give people aesthetic pleasure. If they're well done, they improve a company's or an organization's credibility. But as far as learning goes, there's the theory of dual coding, which is fairly well accepted. I mean, there's a debate about every theory, but this one's fairly well accepted, and that is that humans have two tracks, at least, for perceiving and processing, especially processing information. So one would be the visual track, and the other would be the verbal track, which includes text and or audio. That means that if we use visuals, relevant visuals that enhance understanding and meaning, people, learners, participants have two ways to get the information rather than just one way, which would be all text. One other interesting thing is when we look at a graphic, we perceive it in parallel. In other words, we see the whole thing. But when we read text, we do it serially. We do word after word after word. That's how you read. So the gestalt of seeing an entire visual has a different impact on us. And we get the big picture, if it's well done, right away before we dive into it, So those are some of the advantages of using visuals for learning.
So when we talk about using visuals for learning, we could use video, and video comes in many different formats. You have your talking head type conversation like we're having right now, where maybe there's a lecturer who's delivering things. There could be screenshots, there could be screen shares, screen recordings, there could be animations, there could be all kinds of different things,
Right.
pictures and what have you. The variety of things that we can use seems like it's never ending, but it also I think can be challenging for instructional designers in that you almost have too many options to use from. And that's why I sort of said, like, sometimes your brain melts when you try to think like, well, if I want to create a visual that goes along with this piece, what could I do? But then there's this piece and then there's this piece. Like, is there a way that instructional designers can simplify the process of taking the knowledge, taking the information that they need to share, and kind of figuring out the best approach with which to identify the best strategy, the best way forward, even if it's the first step for identifying like the visuals that really are going to be most effective for a piece of learning?
Well, that's a great question. I do want to point people to an article that I wrote about that on the eLearningCoach.com, and it's called something like Which Graphic Should I Choose? There are kind of like common sense rules. For example, if we're describing a system, then we probably want to show the components of the system visually. So that would be a diagram. If we're telling a story, then we want to show the characters and their environment. So there is a way to make some kind of one-to-one correspondence between what's our goal in that moment, not the goal for the whole course, but the goal for that explanation. Sometimes there's really nothing much to do or say in terms of a visual, but yet we want it for aesthetic purposes. And that is what people call, perhaps in a derogatory way, eye candy. And what I'll do in those cases, when I do want to make something kind of visually appealing, but I don't want to distract from the real message, is that I might use a silhouette of a person. Let's say I have an example where it's about taking care of children. So I might just have a silhouette of a parent carrying a child. You can't really tell who it is or, you know, anything about their physical characteristics, but you can tell from the silhouette what they're doing. So it adds a little aesthetic appeal and a little bit of motivation. I mean, you can have some screens with plain text or, but you can't have too many. Another thing that you can do is take your bullet points. I have another article on the eLearningCoach.com called Alternatives to Bullet Points. You can take them and put them in a shape or use a little representative icon for each bullet point, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. So in general, I think that if you stop and think, what is the goal right here? What message do I want to deliver? You can probably come up with a decent visual to go along with it that will add meaning. I know they have to be relevant. That's rule number one.
Well, in that answer, you mentioned your blog a couple times, and I know it sounds like, hey, you're plugging your blog and you want people to go there, but you're actually doing my job for me because I really wanted to direct people to the elearningcoach.com because before I started talking to you, I was going through it and it's like I'm looking at it now, every post on there, you have articles as well as podcast episodes. It looks so interesting and absolutely relevant to the L&D professionals out there. So I'll plug it as well, the eLearningCoach.com, and invite people to go check it out.
Well, there's a menu called multimedia, and under that are many, many graphic articles. And that's why, I mean,
Mhm.
there are many good books out there, many good websites. I just happen to know what I wrote about. So,
I wanted to ask you about some of the common challenges that instructional designers face when they're trying to improve their visual design and even trying to improve their skills. What are some of those common challenges that they face, and how can they overcome them?
well, there's kind of two levels of challenges. One is their personal skills, and the other, or their individual skills, but the other is the problem within organizations. For example, a marketing team may give the learning design team the colors that they have to use and the fonts that they have to use for their branding. But the marketing people don't understand the process of learning. It's not that easy. Our brains aren't recorders. It takes almost never is one learning experience enough or one learning event enough. People need reinforcement and looking at it again and discussing it and looking at it things from different angles and practicing and getting support from supervisors. So one big problem when I teach a visual design, a full day visual design course is people say, my marketing department gives me horrible colors and unreadable fonts. And that's a really big problem. And I think people have to build a business case and explain to marketing or the higher ups that learning design needs its own style guides, so that people
Mhm.
can read, that improves legibility and readability, and that the color that you don't need sunglasses to, look at the on occasion what I've done, and I hope none of my clients are listening. What I've done is very slightly stray from the colors, a lighter version or a medium version, so that it's more, so that the learner's eyes won't get fatigued, or so that things look better together from a learning perspective. I just think learning designers need more respect all over the map. But okay,
Mhm.
now individual skills. People often make things too cluttered. So they don't realize how much breathing space or white space elements need. That means space around the text, enough line spacing between sentences, space around the graphics. Another thing, a common mistake is to not be thinking in terms of the visual hierarchy. That's a real advanced graphic design term. And most instructional designers, learning designers have not been through one university course in that topic. So how would they know? So the visual hierarchy is deciding where your focal point is and what's most important and emphasizing it by making it larger, putting it at the top, putting it in the upper left. And you want to have a screen or a slide that has a visual hierarchy so that the most important information, whether it's a graphic or whether it's text or a headline, will be seen first. And you do that through size, brightness, and positioning are three common ways to do that. Just one other thing. I think it's common to not know where to start because you're just staring at a white screen and you don't know what to do. So remember the term learning designer, instructional designer. Designers sketch. Designers have a sketchbook and pencils on their desk, and no one has to see what you've made. Don't show it to anyone. So all you have to do is be able to draw thumbnail sketches. You draw 6 to 9 rectangles in the shape or orientation that you're going to be working with, and sketch out a bunch of different ideas, and you'll come up with a lot of creative ways to make your layouts, because that's what happens when you have paper and pencil. So stick figures and geometric shapes, that's all you have to be able to design. Try 5 or 6 different ideas, sketch them out, see what comes up. That will give you your layout. Then you can go into a graphics program and implement it.
I mean, you're kind of talking about storyboarding there,
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, so
But
for
video type storyboarding.
right,
Yeah.
but very much like the same idea where you have instead of, if you've worked in film or video and you understand that shots are separated, they're individual shots, but you can visualize them beforehand and do stick figures, just like you're talking about, real quick sketches that inform whoever's shooting it or whoever's designing the shot to get basically what your vision is. And so you can do exactly the same thing here, uh, where you have whether it's slides or screens or segments, whatever you want to call it. There's a start point, a stopping point, or maybe there's or pieces that are on screen, similar to what you kind of mentioned before, where I want to show a sequence. Well, how do we want to show that sequence? Do we want to show it horizontally? Do we show it vertically? Have a nice circle? Is there something on screen that we can point to? And then you can start to pick it apart.
Right. And when you pick up a pencil and start drawing, it seems to channel another type of creativity. And
Yeah.
and no one has to, in the case of if you're trying to give it to a graphic designer, they will have to see what you're doing. But a lot of times people are working on in a department of one or two and implement what they storyboard. So, a lot of times no one has to see it because a lot of people are embarrassed to show people their sketches.
Well, that question that I just asked you was about some common challenges, but another one that I wanted to ask you was, are there some practical ways that instructional designers can enhance their skills? And so it seems like one of those things would be picking up a pencil and paper or something and sketching and getting some of those ideas out. And while that could be a way, while what you may create may be very specific to a thing that you're working on, I have to think that the practice of doing that over and over again would lead to some good habits or some good ideas for you in enhancing your skills.
I agree. And also you can, if you have them in a spiral bound sketchbook, you can go back and look and go, oh, I thought of that idea a year ago. I didn't use it, but I could use it on this project. It's essentially you're, you're tracking and recording possible ideas. So that's great too. I also just diagram content. I just go,
Hmm.
let's see, this goes with that, but that would go with this. And it really helps you think ideas through because our working memories are very limited. We can only hold 3 to 4 things in mind at one time. So by putting it on paper, it's a cognitive aid. But some of the other ways to get over the challenges, one is lack of inspiration. Online, learning to become aware of visual design all around you. Online, there are lots of websites where you can get ideas. I have approximately 100 graphic design books behind me. When I'm stuck, I'll just start going through them. And the basic principles of visual design are not that hard to learn. Contrast, unity, visual hierarchy, colors, a pleasing color palette. So any good graphic design book is going to teach that. The reason I speak of visual design rather than graphic design is because often graphic design is working in the world of advertising, marketing, web design, and especially in advertising, you can be really clever, but we can't, sadly. We're thinking of like, how can people understand this and construct knowledge? So we have to be pretty clear, and I can have all kinds of cool ideas and go, nope, that won't work. And even if I think it would work and it's humorous, then my clients say, nope, we're not going to joke about that.
Hmm.
So,
I think there's a lot of us in L&D who come from different fields,
mhm.
who originally got their start in so many different places. And through some journey and through happenstance, we end up being the people who are asked to either teach something or build something or organize something, or maybe all of the above. Like me personally, I started professionally in web design,
Mm,
and that's so I was studying not just web design but also usability, and I was designing things all the time. And I learned a lot from Steve Krug's "Don't Make Me Think," and
right.
that was really eye-opening for me. But personally, I also had experience in independent filmmaking, and so I had a lot of practice, not just shooting video and editing video, but also the idea of scripting and storyboarding and getting your ideas out, in sketch form and everything. So for me, it kind of it helped because the two sort of came together naturally. This online design and visual experience that I had, and also the personal interest in teaching. I was interested in it. And so that kind of brought me to it, and I've been in the field ever since. But I think that a lot of people, they could come from all over the place. And so so you mentioning that perhaps all it takes is some exposure to basic visual design, uh, foundational elements,
Yeah.
so that you can get a better idea about what is the rule of thirds, and what is how is contrast important, and is that all people need? Like, is that a good way, like an introduction for people or a refresher for people who are been trying to figure it out?
I think there are three components to that. One is, and I did write a book called Visual Design Solutions, and that one is for learning professionals, but there are other really good ones. That are more geared towards graphic design. One is Robin Williams. I think everyone knows her. She writes lots of visual design books, and those are good. Mine is geared towards uh, learning, but there are just so many on the market that, as you can see, I have a lot of them. Um, so I think there's three components. One is learning the principles. Another is practicing like crazy. Really practicing and focusing and working on it. Actually, I'm going to throw in one more that goes with that one. Not comparing yourself to professional designers, graphic designers who work at this maybe 50 hours a week, probably have a degree in it, at least a 2-year degree. I mean, these people you may not get to the point where you design like them, so just forget about it. Instead, compare your work to your previous work. Work on it for 6 months. Work on applying those principles. Then look back at your previous work. That's how you'll see that you're improved. And the third component is raising your consciousness or your awareness of design in the world around you. So if you're riding a bus or a metro, subway, look at the ads. How did they arrange them? What do they want you to look at first? Do the same thing when you get junk mail, when you look at a magazine, when you look at websites. Everything was probably made by a graphic designer who knows those principles. Now, they're not all great. When you see something you don't like, when you see white text on a light gray background, say, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. I can barely read it, let alone someone with low vision. So, see things that don't work and keep a note of those too. But you'll find lots of good ideas when you raise your awareness of visual design in the environment.
That's great. I want to wrap up our discussion today with something that, we've been talking a lot about how can we improve ourselves and what can we do to improve things and all that. One way that we can also improve is by listening to feedback
Mm,
and understanding what the learner's experience is and their satisfaction with what we've built. So, what are some ways that we can get feedback on the visual design of what we've built so that
mhm.
we can iterate and improve and really hit our mark?
I'm so glad you mentioned that because a lot of times someone will say to me, do you think this would be better or that would be better? And my answer is it doesn't really matter what I think. Go talk to the learners, show them. So I remember in graduate school, they taught us something like even just talking to one person. It wasn't about visual design, but just in general, it can improve your work a lot. So what I recommend, and a lot of people recommend this, is making prototypes. So your prototype, a look and feel prototype, there's so many different kinds. One would just be how interactions work. But another look and feel prototype would have your user interface design, your palette, and an example of the style of images that you want to use because some courses are going to really focus on photographs. Others, will be vector graphics or those illustrated graphics that can increase in resolution up and down, and it doesn't matter. So I would have the style, maybe you want a sketchy style, a casual style. Maybe it's for bank executives and it's a very formal style. So you want to get some sample members of the audience, show them your prototypes, and talk to them. Of course, you have to talk to clients, internal or external too, but it's great to get feedback from audience members. A small sample, 5 to 7 people, will, do you like this? Some people might say, I'm offended, actually. And you go, what? You go, yeah, that graphic, and they'll tell you why they're offended, and you may not have even known it. Or you may write instructions and they go, I have no idea what to do. And you spent 1 hour writing that one sentence. So you never know until you run it by the learners. I'm really glad you brought up that point.
That's so true. If they don't like it, it's not going to work at all.
Right.
Well, I want to thank Connie Malamed for joining us today. Again, you can find her work over at the eLearningcoach.com. And I know I've said that like 10 times. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please go do check it out. What are some other spots where people can learn about you and follow you?
I have a community at masteringid.com where I teach instructional design principles. Breaking into ID.com is a free e-learning course about the email course about the career in instructional design because a lot of people don't know what they do. And then I'm on Twitter, X at eLearning Coach, and LinkedIn. You can find me. So that's about it.
Awesome. Lots to learn, lots to choose from there. Thank you so much, Connie, for joining us today.
And thanks for having me. Great conversation.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this episode of the L&D Explorers Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe because more episodes are on the way. And no matter what your learning and development goals are, GoSkills can help. Click the link in the description to find out more. And thanks again for watching.